I am here in Medjugorje and I'm with, what's your name?
Joseph Daly,
And where are you from, Joseph?
Florida. Ave Maria, Florida.
Wow, what a nice place to live in, Ave Maria, Florida. And you said you came 53 times here?
57. This is 56 or 57. I think it's 57. I lost count.
Why do you come back all the time?
Where else would you want to go? I mean, like if she was appearing in Ave Maria, Florida, I'd stay home all the time. But, she's here. Where else would you want to go?
And somebody watching now not having been in Medjugorje, you say, with conviction she's here. How do you explain it to somebody who hasn't been here?
I don't know if you can. I really don't. I don't know if you can. I've seen some stuff. I've seen a couple of miraculous healings here. There was one of them was a woman was in my tour group. Her name was, oh God, this is over a decade ago. Her name was Virginia Landry. She was from Rhode Island. And I don't remember if it was muscular dystrophy or multiple sclerosis, but she was pretty much confined to a wheelchair. Excuse me. Excuse me. And we went to Italy. We went to Padre Pio's. We went to another place called Lanciano, where there's a Eucharistic miracle. That in itself was mind-boggling. Mm-hmm. But she was in a wheelchair, and she was, I mean, if she mustered all of her strength, she might be able to stand up very feebly. But we came here, and I was considerably younger. This might be going back 20 years ago. I'm not sure, but I kind of like took off. I think I was up in Cross Mountain somewhere, and I came back, and I was walking down to the house we were staying at. And I remember there was this guy, his name was Joe. He was a fireman from Louisiana. And this guy just happened to be a unbelievably huge man. He was like tall, husky. I mean, he could like block out the sun. And he sees me, so we're talking, and he says to me, he goes, "Hey, did you hear about Virginia?" And I'm like, I'm thinking the worst. I'm thinking like, oh my God, like what happened? He goes, "She's walking." And I'm like, come on, you gotta be kidding me. So he goes, "No, really, she's walking." And I'm like, okay, so I'm still very skeptical. My name should have been Thomas, And he's talking to me, and he turns around and he points over my shoulder, and he goes, "There she is." And I turned around, and there's 3 women walking down the street in our direction, and she's in the middle. And let me tell you something. That just watching her was unbelievable confirmation, because she didn't miss a stride. And she was like laughing, giggling like a kid, and she sees me, and she says, "I've been up and down Cross Mountain." I didn't see her when I was up there, but it's easy to get lost up there, so many people. She says, "I've been up and down Cross Mountain. I was up and down Apparition Hill a couple of times." She says, "I walked around the church like 400 or 500 times." And she says, "Look at my feet." And her feet were all kinds of like scabbed up. She says, "I haven't broken in a pair of shoes in a couple of years." And I was like literally floored. That I'm thinking to myself, like, this is either like a really serious, miraculous event, or this woman should get an Academy Award for being an actress. I mean, because it was mind-boggling to see something like that. Now, it turns out there was a priest, his name was Father Ruki, and he was blessing people with a monstrance, and that's when this healing actually took place. And from what I've read, I was told that most healings that occur here occur when people are being blessed with the Blessed Sacrament, because that's like Jesus himself. And that's when, from what I understand, that's when she was actually healed and she got up. And it was just a little side note to the conversation, but a friend of mine who's a priest was very good friends with this priest, Father Ruki. I didn't even know that at the time, but I was like, that's kind of unusual, but I found that out when I came home. But another time I was talking to a woman, and she said she had terminal cancer. And when she went home, she didn't have it anymore, just kind of like went away. And I mean, I thought that was, I've seen a couple of things here that were really, really like mind-boggling. And then you have the occasional deliverance that you see. They're, from what I understand, I mean, people think it's going to be like The Exorcist, you know. They're not quite that dramatic, but some of them are a little attention-getting. I've seen a couple of them where they're, you just don't want to be around. And that's why whenever I come here, I carry something like this with me. But it's always good to be prepared for things like that. But they tell you don't touch anybody, just unless you're recruited to help. But they're not, I haven't seen as many of them lately as I have when I first started coming here. And when I first started coming here, this was maybe 5 years in duration. I mean, a lot of the, I mean, there were hardly any stores around. The roads were dirt. There were no street lights. I mean, I'd say probably 90% of the buildings weren't here. I mean, the place was beautiful. I missed the way it was. I mean, you could walk through a vineyard, and at certain times of the year, you could steal a handful of grapes. But it was just, I mean, there were like goats and sheep and lamb just running around. It was a beautiful place. It was almost like going back in time. Kind of like reminded you a little bit like Little House on the Prairie. Mm-hmm. But I keep coming back every year. I usually come like 2, sometimes 3 times a year.
As a tour guide, or as a pilgrim?
No, I'm just. I don't
As a
even know what.
pilgrim?
I don't. Yeah, I guess you could say that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I come here every year for March 18th because that's Mariana's birthday, and I'm staying at one of her places, and. Every year on her birthday, she has a Marian apparition, and very coincidentally, I'm a couple of years older than her, but we were born on the same day.
Wow, 18th of March.
Yeah, that's my birthday.
Yeah,
too.
we will pray for you on the 18th. I remember you.
I want to thank her mother if I ever see her, because every year on my birthday for the rest of her daughter's life, there's going to be a Marian apparition. But that kind of, that's a little heartwarming for me. But as I said, you know, I don't know why you'd want to go anywhere else. I've been to other places. I've been to Lourdes. I've been to Fatima. Let me see, where else have I been? I was in Lourdes like 19 times. That was a very nice place. I have an aunt of mine was healed of cancer there. Yeah, that was a bizarre story. And my aunt went there, and my father went with her. My father, my sister, my aunt, and my cousin's baby daughter. She was about 3 years old. My cousin was, he was in Vietnam, and he was exposed to Agent Orange. Yeah, and they didn't really know, and he came home and got married and had a daughter, and she was born with multiple birth defects. Yeah, it was, you know, it was kind of rough. But 4 of them went to Lourdes, and my, you know, I mean, everybody, you know, everybody went in the water, the whole 9 yards. They went to church, they went to mass, and nobody, you know, I mean, the clouds didn't part. Nobody saw angels, or, you know, it was just like every other normal day. And my aunt was told she had terminal cancer. And when she came back home, she was going to the doctor. And what had happened was she went to like 2 or 3 doctors. They all pretty much told her the same thing. And they gave her about a year to live. They told her, they said, don't make any really long-term plans, because they're not going to come to fruition. So she came here, and she went back home, and she was talking with this doctor, and the doctor supposedly said, I mean, I'm not really medically astute, but the doctor said to her that if she underwent some surgical procedure, it might prolong her life a little bit. And the doctor explained to her, he says, it's not really going to be like quality time, he says, because it's major surgery. He said, you're in your mid-50s and you got terminal cancer, so, you know, you're not going to be trying out for the Olympics after the surgery. It's pretty serious. So she thought about it, and she decided to have it done. So she went into the hospital. It was in February of 70, whatever this was, and I think it was 74. She went into the hospital and had the surgery, and the doctor, not to be a little gross, but I mean, you know, doctors do what doctors do, and he had her opened up on the operating table, and he later said he almost had a heart attack because he thought he opened up the wrong person. Because, I mean, I wouldn't know. I mean, I'm not an astute medical observer. I wouldn't know somebody that had terminal cancer from, you know, roadkill. I wouldn't know. But they said that the doctor said her insides, her internal organs were perfect. They were like beautiful. And he called a couple of other people into the operating room to look. And they all said, she looks fine to me. And they're checking medical charts. You know, the doctor said he could see everything he worked for all of his life going out the window. So I don't know if it was the same day or the next day the doctors talking to her. I mean, they stitched her up, and she was in the recovery room, and the doctor was talking to her, and he's telling her the good news, but she was, you know, she was still groggy. She's talking to Neil Armstrong on the surface of the moon or something, you know. So the doctor explained to her she's like perfect health. And he said to her, what did you do? So she starts to tell him, I went to this little town in France. It was called Lourdes. And she later said that as spaced out as she was, she noticed the look of shock on the doctor's face. You know, like a lot of doctors never heard of it, and then the ones that did, they don't necessarily put a lot of weight in it. But the doctor stopped her, and he said, do you know what day you had the operation on? And she goes, I don't know, Monday, Friday. And he goes, no, do you know what date? She goes, no. She goes, I don't know. I don't know what day it is. The doctor says to her, you had the operation on February 11th. That's the feast day of Our Lady of Lourdes. And then, this was the real killer. The doctor says to her, do you know where I was born? And she supposedly looked at the doctor and says, I have no idea, I'm not your mother. So the doctor says, I was born in Lourdes, France. He says, I came over to the US when I was 3 years old. I was raised here, I went to school here, I met my wife here, we got married here, all my kids were born here, I own a house here, but he goes, I was born in that town. So like after I heard that story, I mean, I was a relatively young guy back in the 70s, and I was thinking like, you know, nobody has to hit me in the head. I'm like, okay, I got it, you know, I see it. So I always used to think when I was younger, says, imagine what it was like being in Lourdes when that was going on. Even if you didn't see anything, even if, you know, you really weren't there with your fingers on the pulse of what was going on, you know, even if you were a doubter, just imagine being in that town, like the graces you must have got just from being there. And then when I heard about this was only going on for a couple of years when I heard about it. I was sitting in the rectory in this church I went to, and I was talking to this priest, and this is like, you know, maybe like a year or two after this started.
In Medjugorje here?
Yeah, right here in Medjugorje. This is about a year or two after it started, and the priest was showing me a magazine, and they had pictures of all the kids, and he's telling me the story, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't know, you know, because there's a lot of people that claim to see things, and you know, it's like Christ says, by their fruits you shall know them. But this was very early on, and I was like, you know, I don't know, I'm not necessarily sold, you know. I said maybe something's going on, but so then as time progressed and I started to hear more and more and more about it, and everything, like the church can't make a they can't make a decision on it until it's over, but everything seemed to be legitimate. You know, everything seemed to be real. And I thought to myself, like, I got to go over and check this place out. So this was, I think this was still before the Iron Curtain fell. And I managed to come over here, and I didn't see anything. I've never seen the Virgin Mary. I mean, I'd be happy if I could just see her footprint on the ground, but I've never seen her. But I mean, I was kind of like convinced there's something supernatural going on here. I can't verify anything. As I said, I don't see anything, but there's something supernatural going on here. I said, you're not going to have this many people coming here, this many people converting back to the faith. You know, you're not going to have this many people going to confession and going to Mass. And some of the people that came here, they're going to Mass. Like every time there's a Mass, they're at the Mass. I mean, if they had Mass going for 24 hours, there'd be people living in the church. And I'm thinking, like, I've never seen that before. You know, I've never even, that was like mind-boggling. And I thought to myself, there's something to this place. There's something going on. And I just started coming back. And I think the first time I came back like twice that year. I came back twice the following year. I usually come like 2 or 3 times a year. Now that I'm getting older, it's a little more difficult to travel. So I come once, occasionally twice a year. But if I could, I would live here rather than Florida. Why would you live here? What's that?
Why would you live here?
Why would I live? Why wouldn't I live here? This is like, I can't think of any place on the planet I'd rather be. Mm-hmm. Everybody's friendly. Everybody's like personable. Nobody. I mean, I used to work in a jail, and when I'm home, I walk around with 2 guns on me. I come here, I'm like, I don't even want an hors d'oeuvre sword. You know, I'm like, I mean, it's like the most peaceful place. I've never been in a place like this.
And you talked about confession. You saw that people go lines confession.
The lines for confession. I mean, like in the summertime when it gets really hot, I've been hearing people pass out from heat online waiting to go to confession. That's how long the lines are.
And what would you tell people? A lot of people maybe want to go to confession, are scared. What would you tell them? What is the beauty about confession?
Well, listen, first of all, the priest that you go to probably doesn't know you. Really, more than likely, he's probably never going to see you again. And he probably, I mean, especially here, he probably hears so many confessions that, like, if he tripped over you when he was coming out of the confessional, he probably wouldn't know he heard your confession. So, I mean, like, you talk about anonymity, I mean, you know, unless you go into confession and you got 2 heads, he probably wouldn't remember you.
And what it's for you? It's liberating. You feel free when you go to confession?
Well, the last couple times I went to confession, it was just because I overslept and missed mass. So I mean, it wasn't like I was culpable of some, heinous crime. But I mean, I'm no angel, and I've done things in my life that I probably shouldn't have done.
Me too.
Yeah, I know. We're all there. We're all there. There's only one man was ever perfect, and they crucified him. But when I do have something, I mean, not that I'm making light of missing mass, but I mean, kind of like if you overslept, it's, I'm not really culpable of some heinous crime. But when I have done things that were
Yeah.
pretty rough, a lot of them were work related. Because, like I said, I worked in a jail, and a couple of times I had to I had to bang people around. Sometimes it got ugly, but no, I mean, it's the nature of the beast you're dealing with. And even though it was like legit, you never like to do that. A couple of times I went to confession, and the priest basically told me the same thing. He says, sometimes you have to use brute force to make people compliant, and I said, yeah, but but I mean, I always did feel a sense of peace afterwards. But, life ain't always easy, Life ain't.
And then our faith states, when we are in a state of grace, we can receive the Eucharist. It seems a lot of people don't understand what is the Eucharist. Can you explain?
Well, I've read everything. I've actually read the Bible from cover to cover like 2 or 3 times. I think I'm on my 4th time now. And everybody hears where Christ says, this is my body, this is my blood, the blood of the new and everlasting covenant, and everybody. And people interpret that differently. Some people think, well, it was just symbolic. And some people think, well, when Christ did it, it was legit, but, Christ isn't here anymore. And I was always like, I believe what Christ said, but I was always like, maybe there's a little bit of truth to what other people say. And then I read in the Bible, I'm not a Bible scholar, but I can't remember exactly where it was, but it said, whoever receives the Eucharist in an unworthy manner commits a sin against the body and blood of Christ. So I was thinking, they didn't say they symbolically commit a sin against the body and blood of Christ. It spells it out. And I think one of the real clinchers for me, I was in Italy once. I've been in Italy a couple of times. It's a beautiful country. I'm not Italian, but it's a beautiful country. And there's a small little church there in a town called Lanciano. Lanciano comes from the word lance. Supposedly the soldier that actually speared Christ, according to some traditions, his name was Longinus, and he was people think it was the centurion, but a centurion was like a captain in the military. Century, 100, he was in charge of 100 men. Roughly a captain in the military today is in charge of 100 men. A captain is not going to do that. It's like a firing squad. I mean, there's not going to be like, lieutenants and captains and majors on a firing squad, unless they really hate the guy. But usually they're enlisted men, privates, corporals. A captain's not going to carry out an execution order. So according to traditions, the guy that actually speared Christ, his name was Longinus, and he was going blind from what they believe were cataracts. Now the Bible says Christ was already dead when he was pierced. Some of his blood ran down the shaft of the spear, got on Longinus's hands. sometime during the day, Longinus rubbed his eyes. He had cataracts, what they believe were cataracts. Shucks golly gee, his eyesight was instantaneously restored. That might be the first post-execution miracle of Christ. Needless to say, Longinus later converted. He was tutored in the faith by some of the apostles. He converted from paganism. He went back to Italy, and one of the towns he converted is now known as Lanciano, from the word lance. And there's a small church there in the, I believe it was the 8th century. A Benedictine monk, was it, I believe, was saying Mass. I might have my dates wrong. I wasn't around back then. He was saying Mass, and he was having some doubts in his mind about transubstantiation. And again, it was like, shucks golly gee. When he was consecrating the bread and wine, the wine turned to blood and the bread turned to flesh. And I guess they didn't know, I mean, they still have it, it's perfectly preserved. And I guess they didn't know this for a couple of centuries because they didn't have the capabilities of testing it. But they said the bread turned into the myocardial valve of a human heart, and the blood turned into type AB human blood. And I was like, wow, that's pretty mind-boggling, you know. And I saw this, and I can't even describe my feelings. It was like, I'm standing there looking at this. It's in a monstrance. It's in a beautiful monstrance. And I'm standing there looking at this, and I'm thinking to myself, like, am I seeing this? Is this real? Is this true? And I'm like, I couldn't believe it. And later, I went to see the Shroud of Turin. I think it was in the 90s, I believe. And I'm buying all this stuff on the Shroud, because whenever I go anywhere, I like to read up on it, you know, educate myself on the subject matter. And I'm like, I was buying all these books on Shroud of Turin, and they had done a couple of studies on it. I think it was in the 80s. And I'm reading this, and there were people saying it was fraudulent, it was this, it was that. And I'm like, you know, every argument that they put forward gets shot down. I mean, I'm not an expert on these things. I'm not a physicist or a chemist, but every argument that the detractors made, they went down in flames, twist, turn, crash, and burn. And and one of the things I read was that they said there's blood stains all over the shroud. And this is back before they knew that there were blood types or blood was species specific. I mean, even if it was fraudulent, I mean, back when it was supposedly made, they didn't know there was a difference between dog's blood, chicken's blood. They just thought blood was blood. They didn't know. And they find out it's all human blood, and it's all the same type of human blood. It's all human blood type AB. And I heard that, and I'm remembering like Lanciano, and I'm like, you know, like, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, if you were a science fiction writer, you couldn't. I mean, Rod Serling couldn't come up with this stuff, you know? And I'm like, I mean, to a detractor, there's gotta be some truth to this. I don't know why people are so dumb.
And you made the research, and now being in Medjugorje 57 times, what would you tell people? Why come to Medjugorje one time?
Well, like I said, if you know any other place where you can be in her presence, go there. Really, I mean, go there. I mean, and you know, when people say to me, well, you can go to a church and Christ is there. Yeah, he is, but he's here too. The both of them are here. you know, really, you know, I mean, I'll cast my weight with both of them. You know, I mean, you know, Jesus is the man, and I mean, Jesus is the reason she's here, and I'm not trying to elevate her among Jesus, because you can't do that. And I mean, but I mean,
What is her role? A lot of Protestants ask. You are worshipping her as a goddess, and it's not true.
She's the ark of the new covenant. Christ says, it's in the Bible, Christ says at the Last Supper, this is my body, this is my blood, the blood of the new and everlasting covenant, which will be poured out for all men for the forgiveness of sin. The new covenant, okay, that's his body, that's his blood, the new covenant. How did he get here? How did he get here? I mean, was he like the Geico caveman? Did he crawl out from underneath a rock? Did God have him shoot down here on golden beams of sunlight with angels surround? No. He was born of the Virgin Mary. He was an infant. He was a baby. He was raised, I mean, just like we were.
All scriptural for our Protestant
Yes.
friends. Born of a virgin.
Yes. And I mean, if his body and his blood is the new covenant, and he was born of a virgin, I mean, at one point in time, Christ was an embryonic baby. You know, he was born just like every other human being. Her womb is the ark of the new covenant. If you read in the Bible and you see what was in the ark of the covenant, and they're all similar titles given to Christ. Aaron's staff was put in there because he was chosen to be the high priest. Christ is the eternal high priest. There was manna put in a golden jar. Christ is the bread of life come down from heaven. Manna was food from, I mean, the similarities, it's
Breathtaking.
it's mind-boggling. If you really look into it, I mean, okay, I mean, don't just, you know, glaze over. Really look into it. It's mind-boggling. You know, and like, if you have to be like really ignorant to deny that. Like, if you can't see that, you know.
And what would you tell people then? For you pray the rosary?
Oh yeah, I prayed a couple times a day.
Why do you do that?
Because I always notice, and you know, like I said, you know, there's only one man was ever perfect, and they crucified him, and it's not me. There's no nail wounds in my wrist. But I noticed that if I say it like on a regular basis, I mean, I'm not going to tell you like life is perfect, but I don't know. Just a lot of times things just seem to be running a little smoother in my life. I mean, like I said,
Same with me.
It's not perfect. I mean, it's not like I'm going to wake up tomorrow and be filthy rich and good looking and young. I'm just fat and old and ugly and broke, but then I got to deal with that. But I don't know. There's a lot of things in my life I just feel better. I feel more peaceful. I don't know, it's just like little things that were always like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but just life seems to run a lot smoother. You know, it's like a lot of little things that would happen that would like annoy the hell out of you. They just don't seem to occur as often. I mean, there's still people around that are like, maybe I shouldn't say this, but there's still people around you might want to punch in the face, but, you know.
But nobody's perfect. Remember what Jesus said,
no,
right?
I know that.
And what would you tell, like, a lot of people think God the Father is an angry old man with a white beard, and he waits that we make a mistake, and he's happy to put us to hell. And that's not true. How is God the Father really?
Well, I think we look at him as like an angry old man with a long white beard and long white hair, because that's how we're conditioned to look at him. You know, like depictions of him in art. That's how we see him. It's just, I mean, not that I want to, you know, but I mean, not that I would really want to bring it up. But I mean, when you think of Satan, you think of a guy in a red suit with horns and a pitchfork. I mean, that's how you're conditioned to think of him. You know, the thing is, if you actually saw Satan, like if Satan just walked down the street and you looked at him, like as he naturally is, you'd be dead before you hit the ground. You'd die of fright. You would probably die from the stench before you even saw him.
I was liberating the phone for space that you could continue talk. So explain, you were with Satan if you were meeting him on the street, and then?
Well, as I was saying, if you saw Satan on the street, you probably wouldn't live long enough to see him, because you would probably be killed by the horrendous stench emanating from his body. But if you actually saw him, like the nanosecond you laid eyes on him, you would keel over dead. You'd be dead before you hit the ground. That's how horribly ugly he is. God and Satan are polar opposites. They're the exact opposite of each other. As horrible as Satan is, God is the exact opposite. God is nothing at all but love. He's just, which people get confused for anger. Well, I guess sometimes he does get angry with some of the things that we do, but he's just and he's loving. I didn't plan on getting into this, but on one occasion in my life, I believe I had a near-death experience, and it's the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me. The only way I could describe it, there was, and it's not in a negative sense, but it was like, I compare it as being like crushed, being smothered in love, where there's nothing negative or I mean, I use those words like crushed and smothered. It's kind of hard to put them in a good parlance, but it was overwhelming. The peace, the love, the joy. I could understand, and it was all emanating from God. I didn't see God, because if I saw God, I wouldn't be here. But it was like I felt like I was very close to God. I felt like that. And it was the love, the peace, the contentment. It was like I've never felt, I never had a feeling like that in my life. The most joyful, most beautiful feeling I ever had. And I remember, like, when I was going through this, it was like I wanted my wife, I wanted all of my friends and all of my relatives to be with me. But yet I knew like it's not their time, you know? And I didn't expect to come back. I mean, I would have been very happy to stay there. But after that happened, I mean, I used to be afraid of dying. Matter of fact, I was kind of like terrified of dying. After that, I can't wait to make the trip. I'm like, anytime, God, really, anytime. I mean, like, if I'm driving down the street, let me pull over first, please, because I don't want to hurt anybody, but anytime, you know? And I still like feel that, oh my God, that beauty of that was, it's, you know, it's one of these things, like, if you haven't experienced it, nobody's articulate enough to really convey that info.
Because you can't put it in human words. I experienced it in a dream. It's an ocean, endless ocean of love, peace, joy. But you can't describe it in human words.
I mean, it's like if the weight of the world was on your shoulders, but instead of being like crushing negative, it was like crushingly positive. Like if you had the weight of the world on you, that wouldn't be enough. Yeah. You know, it's like, it's unbelievable. I mean, and like I said, unless you experience it, nobody can explain it to you. Nobody. And I mean, actually, today, I thank God I had that experience. because I lost all my fear of death. God is, I mean, God's just, but if,
Sister Faustina, His mercy also.
oh, yeah. See, people get God the Father and God the Son confused, but really, like, Jesus was all the merciful attributes of God. All right, He's not the guy like another time is when I tell people there's a duality to Christ. He's the Lamb of God, and He's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Now they don't seem to mesh, but it says the lion will lay down next to the lamb. He says Jesus came the first time He was the lamb. He was led to the slaughter like a lamb. He didn't fight. He even said, I can call down a legion of angels and we could end the world right now. He said that, but He said, that's not why I'm here. He came to be led to the slaughter. There's a lot of things in Scripture people don't really understand, whereas to some degree there's just blind faith necessary, but there are a lot of things that you are able to understand if you know the background. The next time Christ comes back, He's going to be the Lion of the tribe of Judea. It doesn't mean He's going to be, roaming around like killing people and eating them and ripping them to pieces. I mean, it's going to be like, if you see Him, you'll know who He is. You'll know His position. You'll know His power. You'll see His glory. But I mean, nobody's going to come over and try to grab Him and like be beating Him up, because, even if those Roman soldiers that beat Him up the last time, even if they're here and they see that,
they back off.
Yes, because they're and you're gonna realize like.
And you have to be prepared. I saw the second coming in a dream. I saw Jesus, and I knew it's the end. Nothing to do anymore. You have to be prepared, like the 10 virgins. You have to have
all
the Holy
time.
Spirit in you. You need to be in a state of grace, well confessed. That's why I do this channel. You need to be prepared. My brother died sleeping 2023 July. He didn't know that he was not waking up the next day. You have to be prepared. And what does it mean to be in a state of joy, well confessed, clean? Our whole work here is to clean our soul, to stay pure, like the little children. Jesus said, to the little ones belongs the kingdom.
Now, if they told me I was going to go in an hour, I'd be thrilled to death. I'm not kidding. I mean, I'd write my wife a note and I'd mail it and I'd tell her I love her and I miss her. I'll be waiting for her. And the thing is, a lot of times people don't realize you lose a loved one, like a real true loved one. If they're on the other side, they love you more there than they ever could here.
Yeah. Because they're out of the fallen state.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's like, you get a man or a woman, they lose their husband or their wife, and they're like banging their head on the wall. Oh, okay, look, I'm not, it hurts. Even Jesus had people that died and He missed them. Okay. But I mean, like, they love you more when they're gone than they ever could when they were here. And they're waiting for you. Even in the Bible, it says, like, after you die, no one's given in marriage. It's, you're free to get remarried if your spouse dies, but there's no marriage in heaven. But that doesn't mean you don't like each other. Yeah. It doesn't mean you don't know each other.
Love there.
No, but it doesn't mean you don't know each other. I mean, it's not like, I don't know. Like if they have streets paved with gold in heaven, if you're walking down one end of the street and you see like your spouse on the other, it doesn't mean you're going to walk right by and not recognize them. You'll know them, you'll love them, but it's like, okay, well, you're not going to be married anymore, but you don't need that,
So beautiful. What can I say? Thank you for your joy. And what would you tell, how can the people have that joy? You're laughing and you're free and happy. What everybody's looking for that.
Well, for starters, there's all different things you can do, but I would say for starters, if it's possible, come here. And listen, there's some people can't come here. There's some people don't have the means or the capabilities. Some people, it's sad to say, but sometimes there are people in institutions, they can't get out. People are in hospitals, and they might love to come here, but they don't have the chance. There are people might have big families, don't have the funds. I mean, if you have money and you could afford to bring somebody here or send somebody here, that'd be great. That'd be great, you know. But I mean, absolutely, if you can afford it, or if you can get here. Pray before you get here. Just and you don't have to like come over with preconceived notions. Just come here. Be open-minded.
Open-hearted.
Be open-minded. Be open-hearted. Pray before you come here and say to God, look, I don't know what's going on. I'm watching this video with this fat, ugly, goofy guy from Florida telling all this stuff. So, you know, I don't know the guy, but just come over here open-minded, open-hearted. Pray before you come here. Pray while you're coming here. Pray while you get here. And, I mean...
You will see. Taste how good the Lord is.
God can like open up the hardest of hearts, you know.
That's the place for it, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean there's been people here that didn't want to come and they come and you know, like I said, I've seen some deliverances and oh my God, man. I mean it doesn't mean you're going to see it every time you come here, you know.
It's not about that. It's about your heart.
Yeah.
Open up, come here, and see and taste how good the Lord is.
Man, this is like. It's hard to describe. It's hard to put into. Hard to put into words what it's like. Yeah.
Just come and experience.
Yes.
What can I say? Thank you for that beautiful interview.
Look up Tom.
Thank you, Tom Medjugorje. A testimony a day keeps the devil away. Thank you so much for that interview.
Tom, God bless you.